Hi, everybody. How's everybody today? I wanted to welcome you to our 5th session of our wellness workshop. Sandy is back with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. Sandy, as always, is a 20-year professional who's had over 10 years in corporate education. She's trained her 700 artists on techniques, industry trends, and artistry. She's our certified health and mindset coach and meditation guides. I hope you guys have been enjoying the wellness workshops with us. She's here to help educate and lead us to look and feel our best. Sandy, thanks so much for being here again.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm gonna just share my screen real quick and we are gonna get into the presentation. Wow, okay, can you believe we are on, like, what are we, week 5? I think, something like that. I am so excited to be here sharing more of the beauty flow method with all of you. So I'm just curious, for those of you who are here, how many of you were able to have some, like, you've been here for a couple sessions, but how many of you have been able to have some results or finding that you're having a little bit more awareness in your daily habits? Like, just throw that in the chat, like, just kind of interact. Let's see what's going on out there. Let's see, what do we got? Thank you. Yes, yes, I am. Okay. And if any of you want to share, like, what something has been that has been really profound for you, like, go ahead and throw that in the chat while I close my window, because somebody's getting their lawn mowed outside my window. Real quick. Okay. Anybody have? Yes, I've been so much more productive. Okay, Amy, that is amazing. That is what I want to hear. So even if, yeah, realizing my priorities. Oh my God. Isn't it life, like, altering when you're just, like, stopping to breathe? Yeah. Breathing can be life altering, right? But just even having the ability to step back and be like, how am I living my life? Like, how am I showing up? Is it in line with who I want to be? You know, less stress. Marilyn, yes, less stress, prioritization. The more that you show up and who you want to be in life, the less stress you become. All of this is the core foundation to how you look and feel every single day. So beauty, remember I talked about this a couple weeks ago, like, beauty is actually super complicated because the body is complicated. Yes, priority, not having time. Yes, okay, I love this. Good job, Jennifer. Yes, yes. And so today we are going to talk a little bit more about the body, okay? We are going to get into opting for better choices, part 1, all right? It's a 2-part series in particular because it's a big topic, and it really, I think, hopefully after today, you're going to have a lot of clarity on the science of food. But I'm hoping that today you start to put the pieces together of, like, why mindset goes first, then we start to talk about nutrition. Next week, we're going to talk about how to piece everything all together as an entire cohesive idea and how you show up every day, living your best self, living your best life, looking your best, right? So today's overview is we're going to start off with our session intention as always. We'll do a small grounding practice. What I love about today is I'm going to, hopefully some of you know about the microbiome, but if you do not, I'm going to be blowing your mind today, because the microbiome is a new term that I want every single one of you to start becoming more intimate with, and I'll explain why later. So we're going to talk about how the microbiome functions, but how it plays a huge role in your skin. So that's called the gut-skin axis. We'll also talk about ways to support your microbiome. We'll also always check in for some self-connection. And then I am giving you guys an amazing support tool today, like, that I never give anybody unless they're in my program. So I hope that you guys are super excited. Who's excited about microbiome, or who's heard about the microbiome? Like, throw that in the chat if you're like, I know about the microbiome, I know all about it. Like, I'm just curious. Or if you don't know, tell me. I'd love to know. Throw that in the chat. Let's see. Everyone's like, I'm shy. Let's see. I don't know. Heard of it. Sounds rad. Yes, Stephanie, it is the raddest thing. Heard it here first. I know. Okay, Cindy, you know a lot about it. Thank you. I love that. Amy knows a lot about it. Okay. I may be a makeup artist and a beauty geek, but I'm also a body nerd. So to me, the microbiome is like one of my most favorite things to talk about. You guys are probably going to see the passion coming out today because it is so freaking cool what the human body is capable of. All right. So here's the intention for today. Today, we are going to help you identify the ways in which your gut health impacts your beauty and your well-being. Also, to learn about how the microbiome and the gut and just the access of that whole gut and microbiome and how it functions. Okay. So let's all take a moment and just ground ourselves. So if you have any devices, just put them off to the side for now, unless you get super excited about the microbiome as much as I do. You can tag me in a story. You know I love it when you tag me in stories. But first, I just want you to take a moment, right? And if you're sitting, plant your feet on the floor. Roll your shoulders back and just take a moment to close your eyes. And we talked about breathing last week, how to breathe. Diaphragmatic breathing is what it's called. So I invite you all to take a breath, deep inhale in through the nose and exhale out through the mouth. Again, take a deep inhale in through the nose and exhale out through the mouth. And take a moment to just arrive into the body and just becoming aware of how you feel today. You know, it's Monday. For you, if you work in a salon, you probably have the day off. If you're in the office, it may seem a little bit of a active day, but take a moment to really set into your body and how you feel. And when you are ready, you can go ahead and open up your eyes and come back. And for this next, what is it now? Less than an hour, just over 50 minutes. Be grounded, be present, be here. You are fortunate enough to have this opportunity to be privy to knowledge and privy to creating the ideal you. So be present here. Your to-do list, your social media feed, that will all be here when you are done. But be here for you right now. Okay. So let's see where we are in our flow. We have spent a lot of beautiful time on mindset and self-connection. We talked about finding our whys, letting go of thoughts that no longer serve us. And last week we meditated. Like, I'm just curious, throw it in the chat. If you meditated with me last week, how did you feel after that? In terms of like the rest of the day, did you sleep better that night? Like, what was it did you feel in your body after that meditation? Throw that in the chat. Like, let's hear it. I'm just curious. What do we got? What do we got? Great. It did several times that week because it was so awesome. Marilyn, that's amazing. That's amazing. I don't know if you did my meditation with the recording or if you just did a meditation. That is great. Anybody else meditated? No? If not, no big deal. No big deal. Move this over really quick. Okay. If you did not have a chance to meditate last week, the recording is still available for you. So try to take advantage of that because it's really good for you. All right. So we are getting into opting for better choices. So starting this week, we are going to begin a nutrition and lifestyle protocol. And the reason why I call it a protocol is because this is when I'm in my one-on-one coaching program, this is about the time where we start to introduce another layer to how we care for ourselves, right? So that's why I call it a protocol. We will not be going through a large protocol together, but take what you think is going to benefit you from this conversation and next week's conversation and implement it into your everyday life, okay? We are going to talk about the education on the axis of the gut, mind, and skin, which is called the microbiome. We're going to talk about food exploration for health and salon life. Now that we're going to talk about salon life next week. We're not going to talk about it this week because this is a big topic. It's going to take, like, I can teach 10 weeks on the microbiome. So we have to split it up. And then we're also going to talk about post-program accountability and opting for better choices in real life. Okay. Let's just take a moment and talk a little bit about the connection of your gut, your mind, and your beauty. So for the past 2 weeks, we've talked a lot about how the way that you respond to stress and the way that you respond to your experiences can dictate what goes on in your nervous system. And we talked a lot about how your nervous system is in control of what types of nutrients are reached to your hair, skin, and nails, which are like the ground zero for your beauty. And keeping your nervous system in priority and understanding the science of how the nervous system affects your whole body, but not only that, it affects like how fast you age, and not just in your mind, but also physically, how you look and how you feel. It's really, really interesting how now mindset is a beauty practice. It is a beauty tool, okay? So the beauty is a system. I just want you guys to, like, if you want to like take that note down, beauty is a system. It is a full, whole body system. And this is why I always like talk about how beauty doesn't start and stop with skincare. Like you are just topically focusing on beauty from one dimension, but beauty is dimensional, okay? And this is why I always use this example. Like I've had 2 kids and I've never felt and looked, I'm gonna be honest, looked my worst than when I had just had children. And because when you just have children, your nervous system, your hormones, everything is like it's upside down. Everything is on its fritz, right? And you're not sleeping, you're probably not eating. And so your whole body, everything that your body needs to function well is no longer there because you have somebody new to acclimate to, right? And so that is why you see people when they're super stressed or they're not nourishing their body properly, they tend to resemble that on the outside. And so true sustaining beauty is nourishing on the inside first. So we are going to talk, and I know I just keep talking about the microbiome, that's going to come up in a minute, but the reason why the microbiome is so important to beauty and mind is because, and again, I'll talk about this in a minute, is because the foods that we put into our body, scientifically, depending on how nourishing they are for you, they can surpass your gut lining and get into your bloodstream and reach various parts of your body. And so there are only 2 parts of your body that have direct contact with the outside world. That is the skin you see topically, and that is your gut. Because the food that comes in from the outside world goes into your body and it starts to digest in your gut, and then it's got to go somewhere. Okay? And what happens is if the food is not tolerated by your body, it goes into your bloodstream, and then the only place it goes to is out through your skin. And so if you have a breakout and we'll talk a little bit about like eczema and psoriasis and all that stuff, it's got to go somewhere. And so the first place you're going to see if you have a gut imbalance is on your skin topically. And so this is why it's such a huge beauty topic, is because when we think that we have acne or premature aging or any sign of skin dysfunction showing up, we only treat it from a topical perspective because we think that's why it's there. And 90% of the time, it's happening because you have a gut imbalance. So you actually don't have skin issues, you have a gut issue. And we're going to talk about the science about that. And so as somebody, I have battled eczema and psoriasis my whole life. I did not get it in check until I changed my whole gut protocol. And I had lived a life of putting topical steroids on it every single time. And we'll talk a little bit about how that actually is making it worse in just a minute. So I hope you guys kind of understand, like, everything all works in a symbiotic system. And that's why beauty is a system. And the gut is going to be the number one key that's going to unlock any of your skin concerns. The foods you eat writes the code of your body and directly impacts the lens in which you view life. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. The foods you eat writes the code of your body and directly impacts the lens in which you view life. Let's get into this because this is a really interesting topic, okay? But before we get into it, I want to tell you that I'm going to be presenting to you a lot of information, some of which could be triggering to some of you. And I want to preface that because when you see things, especially when it comes to food, there's a very emotional attachment to food that we have as humans. And it's something that I think that we need more support in talking about in a way that it is like it's emotional. So I don't think anyone's gonna like flip out after this presentation, but I think it's gonna trigger some of you into some thinking. And if it does, please reach out to me so that we can walk through that and what that looks like, okay? So at the end of the day, it's not about being perfect, it's about being aware. I keep saying this throughout the program because a perfection project is rooted in shame. A growth goal is rooted in empowerment. A perfection project is rooted in shame. A growth goal is rooted in empowerment. So choose today how we're going to approach this from a mindset perspective. Are we looking at this as like, okay, after I see today, I'm going to like throw everything out and change everything? Or am I going to use it as fuel to grow myself, to get better? And this is why mindset is so good to talk about first before we talk about nutrition, because if you don't have the mindset of like where your priorities are, I'm never going to get you to eat broccoli. If you don't have your values declared, I'm never going to get you to be in a place where you want to get better with your food choices. So it's all done on purpose. And this is why it's going to be a good time today. Okay. So this next slide is one that is fascinating to me. I hope it's fascinating to you. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the American diet because that's where we all are right now. And I want to give you some facts about the standard American diet, okay? Before we get into the microbiome, because I think it's eye-opening. 77% of American diets consist of primarily processed foods. Processed foods are anything that comes from like a fast food restaurant or comes from sometimes even like those grocery store restaurants and grocery store salad bars have processed foods. It comes from things that might be in a box, Insta-ready, things like that. Processed meats, that kind of stuff. So 77% of American diets consist of a primarily processed food diet. That also is very true for children too. 11 million deaths per year in the United States are diet related. Now you might say, oh, but you know, this person may have died of maybe a heart attack or various different types of things, heart disease. Every single one of those is rooted from diet. There's even a lot of really amazing research that's talking about how Alzheimer's and dementia, Parkinson's, they're all rooted from diet, based on your genetics, right? And so that is one of the things that I think is really, really important for us to talk about, is that the American diet, well, I'll tell you this, if you eat a standard American diet, you'll get standard American diseases, diabetes, things like that. And so our country has a lot of work to do when it comes to food, but there's so much hope and so much out there that I think we have a good plan in place. So don't like lose hope. The number one leading death in the United States still to this day is heart disease. And when you really look at the science of heart disease, it stems from stress response and diet. The 5 major food groups in our country are bread, meat, cheese, coffee, and alcohol. Okay. How many of you guys relate to that one? Like, tell me that in the chat. It's okay. No shame here. Like, just like, how many of you are like, oh my God. Yeah. I've always had problems claiming my mind. Okay. Anybody? Currently sipping my, yep, right? Bread, meat, cheese, coffee, alcohol, boozers for sure. Yeah. I mean, listen, I love me a cocktail. It's just understanding what it does to your body is also important, you know, because if somebody love carbs, love coffee, working on sticking to tea, listen, no shame. Okay. There are options out there. There are ways to do it in a really, really good for you way. But we'll talk a little bit about what happens in the science of that. But listen, one of the things that I always just like to throw out there is like, I hate to be Captain No Fun. I try not to be Captain No Fun. Like, listen, I like a good time. I like to hang out. I just pick and choose what are the less of all evils when it comes to alcohol. Okay. Because there are alcohols that have a lot of sugar in it, like white wine. There are alcohols that, you know, mixers, like a lot of juices and a lot of pop. I'm from Chicago. We say pop. I know you guys are a lot of Midwesterns. I don't know if you say soda or pop, but Chicagoans say pop all the time. So those kinds of stuff, you know, those are the things that can really, really bring you down. But if you are just looking at, you know, anti-aging or your beauty from a topical layer, but you're drinking a lot of alcohol, that's going to be, you're going to have a harder time combating some of your concerns. That's all I'm saying. Like, no shame, because I drink. Listen, I'll tell you, I told you guys this the other day. I think it was like the first session. I like to put a little vodka in my rainbow water. Well, it's all good. You know, there's less sugar in that. So that's really fun. Anyway, the most common plants that Americans eat are corn, wheat, and soy. And 2 out of those 3 are really difficult to digest by the human body. And they are the most sprayed with pesticides crops in our country too. So there's a lot of work to be done there. And then the second, this is a very interesting fact, that our country is the 2nd largest consumer of pesticides in the world. We use 850,984,332 pounds of pesticides a year on our foods. Did that not blow your hair back? Because it blows my hair back every single time I read this out loud. I just get like, I just am like, oh my gosh. Was this eye-opening to anybody, or were you guys like, yeah, no, I kind of see that. That's gross. Yeah, red wine for the win. Yes, red wine. It's got resveratrol in it, which is actually an anti-aging natural ingredient, Jennifer. So I see red wine in there. Yes. So listen, grapes are better than red wine, but resveratrol is a really, really good key thing to eat. But yeah, this is very eye-opening, and especially, you know, culturally, this could also apply to various different cultures. I grew up in a very traditional Mexican house, where both grandparents on both my sides, at least one of them had diabetes. My mom has diabetes. My brother's pre-diabetic. There are various things that happen in various cultures. It just isn't American, but I wanted to give you American statistics just so that you can see. Okay. All right. So let's get into this. This is the part of the body that comes in contact with the outside world, outside of your skin. And this is my favorite thing to talk about. Okay. The microbiome is the mini ecosystem that lives inside each one of us and is home to trillions of microorganisms. Trillions, okay? There are over 1,000 different species of bacteria that lives within our gut. And the truth be told is that we have more bacteria in our body than we have human cells in our body. It's like, okay, you guys, we have more bacteria in our body than DNA human cells in our body, okay? Our microbiome is also where the neurotransmitters that metabolize our hormones and nutrients are. They neutralize pathogens, and it's also where we can find 70% of our immune system is in the microbiome, which is basically your gut, the gut lining, okay? So the microbiome, the gut is just like, it's all of your organs and your intestines and your throat, but the microbiome is literally like where that stomach gut lining is, okay? And so what's really important to know here is that the bacteria that we house in our gut, I call some of them are good guys and some of them are bad guys, okay? But we have more bacteria in our gut than there are humans on this planet. We have more bacteria in our gut than humans on this planet. And so the bacteria that's in our gut is fighting itself, okay? And so what we as humans can do, not because we can't heal ourselves, but we have to build an environment where our body can heal itself. And that's where microbiome science is really, really key. So I'll say that one more time. You cannot heal yourself. Medicine cannot heal you, okay? But you building an environment where your body can thrive is what's going to heal you. And so what we're going to talk a little bit about today is what this bacteria does, because that is the most important thing that I want you to take away, okay? So here's how the microbiome functions. It functions off of microbial diversity. So when it comes to our gut microbiome, a diversity of gut bugs is key to our overall health and well-being. And to foster this diversity is our job as a host. The most effective way to do this is through diet. So what that means is we have these trillions of bacterial organisms in our body. Some of them play for the good guy team, some of them play for the bad guy team. And our job as the host of our microbiome is to diversify these microorganisms, these bacterias, and we want to support our good guy team. We want to strengthen the good guys and we want to kill the bad guys. It's literally a war of bacteria happening in your body every single time. What feeds, I'll tell you what's going to feed the bad guys in a little bit, and I'll tell you what's going to feed the good guys in a little bit. But what I want to also explain to you is that what happens is you have these, like, your gut lining is made up of like little tiny bricks. Like, let's pretend they're like these little bricks, like right behind each other, okay? I want you to think of like your gut microbiome is like the kingdom and your gut lining is like the castle bricks, okay? Think about it that way. And what happens is when the bad bugs get strong, they break past the bricks, or like, think of it like they break past the castle wall. And when they break past the castle wall, what happens is you tend to find that the bacteria moves past the gut lining into the bloodstream, and it then attaches to different organs, or it can even go up to the brain. And so what happens when these bad bacteria are like literally just like flowing through the castle walls, you start to pick up dis-ease or dysfunction in those various types of organs that those bacteria went through, right? So the bacteria that alcohol does, where does that go? It goes to the liver and starts affecting the liver, right? And they start to affect various different parts of the body. This is technically how cancer starts. This is technically how all these diseases and dysfunction goes. And, you know, one of the things that I want to also be very clear about is that we hear a lot that the gut is like the second brain, which is actually true. The gut is your second brain. because the gut plays a huge role in your mental health, because if those pathogens and those bacteria actually get to the brain, it can cause dysfunction in the brain. And what that means is that it can cause more anxiety. So it can cause your amygdala to grow, like it can go there and cause more anxiety, it can cause more depression. And there's actually research that has shown that it is the #1 cause to actually ADHD, and to manage something like ADHD is actually kids having a food sensitivity versus actually having a brain disorder. There's a lot of research right now. If you know anybody with that, you can do your own research. I'm not going into it a little bit today, but there is so much to be said that how your food dictates the way you view life, because your food all rises up. That's why we see most of our skin having agitation in the face, because the food rises up and it goes into the brain and can cause dysfunction in the brain as well. Not major dysfunction, like I don't want you guys to freak out, like, oh my God, I'm gonna like freak out. No, but like, it's no surprise that like after you eat something that's really greasy or fatty, that you feel, you think like thoughts that are not really like positive or good for you. Okay, because that is those bad guys getting out. Now, the more we have good guys in, the stronger your microbiome and gut lining is, and you're so protected, right? And I want to rewind really quick. If you ever heard of the leaky gut syndrome, has anybody ever heard of that or been told they have leaky gut syndrome? Can you throw me in the chat? Let me know. I'd love to know. Anybody? Leaky gut syndrome? Yes, heard of it. Yes. So leaky gut syndrome is literally where the bad bacteria are actually leaking out of your gut. That's what I just described you, leaky gut syndrome. Okay. Every chronic disease and every just minor disease, whether it's mental or physical, all starts in the gut, every single one of it, because of leaky gut syndrome. And you may even heard like candida. That's another big word. That's like basically a yeast overgrowth in your belly. It's literally like mold in your belly that's overgrowing. And all of those pathogens are getting out and disrupting all of the body. And so like, if you ever feel like you have like brain fog, that's also a symptom of like having a gut imbalance. If you ever feel like you have fatigue, you're super tired, you can't think right, you're overwhelmed, usually that means a gut imbalance, because those pathogens are getting out, and leaky gut is something that potentially you are up battling against. So what the goal is we want to get more good guys in there, strengthen the gut lining, strengthen the wall of our castle, so that way when that is nice and sealed off, those pathogens can't get off, and we can actually live our best lives. We can live who we are, who we want to be. Our skin thrives because these pathogens aren't affecting it. Okay. And sometimes it's not so clear and dry or cut and dry, because we're humans and we're a very complicated species. But sometimes it could be a food sensitivity that creates these pathogens in this leaky gut, in this microbiome disruption. I had eczema and psoriasis my whole life. And for the first time last year, I got a food sensitivity test and it all went away. And it wasn't so cut and dry. Like, just so that you guys know, I'm going to give you just kind of a background story for me. I have a food sensitivity, a major one, to lobster, which I rarely ever eat. All chicken eggs. So anything with an egg, like a chicken egg in it, I can't have it, or else I will get eczema and psoriasis. All cow dairy, cannot have that. I am sensitive to cow dairy. I can have goat and sheep, and I can have duck eggs, which is really interesting. I am also sensitive to blue dye, so I cannot have anything with blue dye in it, which you shouldn't have dyes anyway, but I can't have any blue dye. And also sulfates, which is found in wine. So that really sucked. And so those are just like some of the things that I found. Oh, another one was barley. Okay, I can't have barley, which eliminates so much. And the second I cut all of those out of my diet, every single skin concern that I had pretty much went away in an instant. In an instant. And it was just fascinating, because I was doing all of like the other stuff that I thought would be, causing it, but it wasn't it. But I had spent so much of my life on topical steroids, which is actually what we think caused and triggered an autoimmune disease in me too, was the topical steroids, because I was weathering away my immune system, which is in my gut. And I was withering away like the surface of my skin, which was actually making it worse. So I had to go through a year of steroid withdrawal on my skin, which was a really interesting journey that we don't have time to talk about today. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background of like how the microbiome is so imperative, right? And so let's get into the gut-skin axis, because this is where, so gut inflammation is what causes this skin issues, right? There's also often it's called dysbiosis. So if you hear dysbiosis, that's kind of what it is. It's like skin inflammation caused by the gut. It's an imbalance in your microbiome, and this imbalance, which is more often than not, shows up on our skin and it's visual in so many different ways, but this is basically your imbalance of your gut. Okay, so if you suffer from like cystic acne, anything like that, you have a gut imbalance. If you have eczema, psoriasis, you have a gut imbalance. If you have anything that is wrong with the skin, it is almost always a gut imbalance, almost always. And so one of the things that what we've learned, especially when it comes to acne, is that you have a gut and liver imbalance. So the pathogens and the food that you're eating are going to the liver. So anything that happens with the liver that causes the gut liver imbalance, that is going to cause like very cystic acne. You also might have a vitamin deficiency. And so in my program, we kind of, listen, I'm not a doctor, and I always say this, like work with your doctor because they see your blood work, but I work with your doctor too, to kind of look at like, okay, how can we coach you to do better in an area that's going to serve your body, and that's going to really create an environment for your body. So just know this, like, this is like something that I'm like, oh my God, I wish everyone knew. But I think we're going to get into next to the part where you feel, let me start it all over again. We're going to get into the part where I think you guys are going to feel most empowered by it. Because like, I'm guessing right now your questions are like, well, what's going to feed the good guys? What's going to feed the bad guys? Like, I'm guessing like that's where you're all at. Like, just give me the answer. So here we go. Okay. I'm not going to tell you anything you probably don't know. Let me just tell you that right now. Maybe a little bit, but let's go with it. Okay. I'm sure this is not anything you don't know, but let's go through it. And I want to be very like, I want to give every single section its due diligence. So here are the things that will feed the bad guys, the bad gut bugs, the ones that are going to rip right through your gut lining and potentially cause dysbiosis and a dysfunction somewhere in your body, a chronic illness or even an acute illness, something like that. The number one thing is sugar, okay? Everything feeds off of sugar, including us, right? We love sugar, right? But those bad gut bugs, their number one fuel is sugar, okay? And sugar is a sneaky little bitch. It shows up in some of the craziest places and you just don't even know, right? And here's the thing, again, it's not about being perfect. I'm not saying tomorrow, cut all this out. It's impossible. You can't do that, right? You work your way up to it. What I'm saying is like sugar and fruit, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna talk about fruit in just a second, okay? We'll talk about it in the slide after this, okay? Because yes, sugar and fruit is okay, just to tell you that. So what I would say is like, when we feel like we need a pick-me-up, the body runs off of energy from two sources. It runs off of energy from sugar and it runs off of energy from fats. And we're going to talk about fats in a little bit too. But we always run to sugar because it's more palatable. We run to sugar because our bodies are addicted to it, guys. Our bodies are, listen, withdrawal from sugar and addiction to sugar is more, they say, than cocaine and heroin. Like, sugar is a real addiction, and food can either be a drug or a medicine. You have to choose which one it's going to be. I'll say that again. Food can either be a drug or a medicine. you can choose how you want it to go. So sugar is going to be something that is a battle. So what I recommend, I usually like to say this to my clients, is like what I would say is like, I'm not telling you to take sugar away. I don't fully 100% take sugar away, but what I don't do is artificial sugars. I don't do any sort of sugars that are like high fructose corn syrup. I would say stick to natural sugars. And if you need more information on that, go ahead and Google what natural sugars are. But like the sugar, like when I make all my desserts at home, I do not buy desserts out because it is all, pardon my French, but it's filled with shit. And so if you can make your desserts at home, it is going to serve you so much. So like some natural forms of sugar, sugar in the raw. No, that's sugar. That's just a marketing term, babe. Yeah. Sugar in the raw is not a real sugar. So coconut sugar is one of the natural sugars, maple syrup, dates. I cook a lot with, stevia works. Stevia is actually one of the best sugars you can get because it's low in glycemic. Fruits are great sugars to have. I'm trying to think what else is out there, but agave is a natural syrup, but I think it's too high in the glycemic. And this is something I get to in my coaching program. We're not going to get into the glycemic factor right now because it's just too complicated to talk about sugar. We can be talking about sugar in the raw. Oh yes, coconut sugar. Yeah, coconut sugar is like the one you want to just get. Like if you can just do coconut sugar, just do that. But sugar is going to be what is going to bring you down. Okay. So I think we got the picture on that, but let's talk about wheat and gluten because this is a really interesting one. So like people are like, okay, what's up with this wheat? What's up with this gluten? Because everyone is like gluten-free, freaking out about gluten. But like 10 years ago, listen, when I grew up, I didn't hear about gluten for till 10 years ago. I didn't understand why gluten was so weird and what the hell was going on with gluten. And the reason why gluten is very interesting in our country is because remember how I talked about wheat is a very highly sprayed pesticide. It's a very highly sprayed crop, with pesticides. And so pesticides job, and you'll see it's at the end, the pesticide's job to do on crops is to kill bugs. But basically what it does is it ruptures the bug's stomach to kill them. That's what a pesticide is designed to do. But what do you think the difference between us and bugs are? What do you think? What's the difference between a human and a bug? I'll tell you right now, it's just the size. We're just bigger bugs. So it just, over the time, it takes us more time in dysfunction. So wheat is a really highly sprayed process or crop in our country. But here's the thing about gluten, because there are gluten sensitivities, and gluten is because gluten mimics a good guy. It's actually in disguise. It's a good guy in disguise. It's wearing a really cute outfit. And so the good guys are like, oh my God, come play with us. Come play on our team. You're you're one of us. But gluten's like, not really. I'm kind of actually like an undercover villain. And so it thinks it's part of the good guys, but it's actually one of the bad guys and does more disruption that way. And that's why it causes dysfunction and celiac disease and things like that, because the body can't recognize that it's not really a good guy or a bad guy. And so the other thing to gluten, which is really interesting, is that gluten is made up of two molecules. You can tell I'm such a nerd about this. It's made up of glutathin and gliadin. And gliadin is what they take out of to make gluten-free foods. And they fill those gluten-free foods with a lot of like artificial ingredients like potato starch and tapioca starch and all this stuff, which is actually still not good for you. So gluten-free foods tend to also still disrupt the microbiome. It just doesn't have the gluten in it. Gliadin is a grain that comes from things that are like made of like corn and soy. And so they originate from grass, which actually causes dysfunction in the intestinal tract of humans because grass is made to be eaten by cows. And over centuries, and our ancestors found ways to cultivate grass into crops that we can eat. So that's why there's a lot of people who are grain intolerant as well. And when you're starting to see things like grain-free stuff, it's because it is free of all glutathin and gliadin. It's free of all of that. And so like now Chipotle has grain-free cauliflower rice. you'll see grain-free chips, grain-free tortillas. In my opinion, I would say that's what you should get, is all of that. But you do you, right? Okay, the next thing is trans fat, refined oil, hydrogenated oils. So oils can really wreak havoc on the microbiome, and that's where like you'll start to read things like vegetable oils, canola oils, safflower oils, some sunflower oils, grapeseed fluid oils. Like a lot of oils can wreak a lot of havoc on the body. And so one of the biggest beauty disruptors is like fried foods, because they are fried in hydrogenated oils, which actually create havoc on the microbiome, or things like that. So that's why like when we talk about like really oily, greasy foods, it's the oil itself that is one of the biggest gut disruptors through the microbiome, and that's why you break out. So that's how like when you eat oily foods, you get pimples. Or if you eat a lot of gluten, you get breakouts, right? The next is cow dairy. So the reason why I single out cow dairy in general, but cow dairy specifically, because cows have a molecule in it called casein that human bodies are actually very intolerant to. But the only reason why cow dairy is very common in our country is because it was the easiest and fastest to reproduce and replicate. But the casein in cow dairy is very dysfunctional to our bodies. We can actually tolerate the casein in cow and sheep, but not in dairy cows. So corn and soy, this goes back to what I was talking about, that molecule gliadin in gluten. Remember, corn comes from the grass family, which cannot be digested by humans. It's not a digestible ingredient, but it is the #1 vegetable that we consume in our country because it's very cheap to make. And so it's very easy to feed people with corn, and it's very easy to feed animals with corn too. So soy is another one. And then lastly, we have antibiotics and pesticides. And this one, listen, I'm not here to be political or controversial in any sort of way, but I want to give you information. So antibiotics, what they do, they're very, very powerful, and they can be very useful. And trust me, like there are times and place for all of them. But what we don't realize in our country is that most of the things that we take antibiotics for are because of a gut imbalance. And what antibiotics do is that they kill infections and they kill bacteria, right? Well, they're also killing the good bacteria. So when you take an antibiotic, what ends up happening is you're killing all the bad guys and the good guys. And so all that like good stuff that you're doing to your body just wipes them all away. And pesticides does the same thing too. So highly pesticized foods are really going to cause a lot of dysfunction in the body. So I hope that this was helpful. Again, it's way more complicated than this. I'm just kind of giving you the basics and overview, but I also want to give you hope, and I want to teach you a little bit about like what you can do. And it's all about balance. Like, again, it's not about being perfect. It's about being aware and just understanding, and it's all about balance. And so here are the things that are going to be so good for your microbiome. Okay. So somebody asked a question about like, can you eat the sugar in fruits? Well, yeah, fruits are freaking amazing for you. Your body needs fiber. Fiber is the #1 thing that is going to feed the good guys. Okay. So here's where like I'm going to be a coach and tell you find balance, because if you're going to eat a ton of fibrous and gorgeous fruits, well, that's your sugar intake for the day. So everything else you can't, like, not you can't have. I'm never going to tell you anything you can't have. And by the way, no one should ever tell you what you can't have. The only person that can tell you what you cannot eat is your doctor and your own body intelligence. Okay. I'm going to say that again. The only person that can tell you what you cannot eat is your own doctor and your own body intelligence. So fiber is so important for your body, and fiber comes basically in forms of, like, you'll see flaxseed is some of them, but hemp seeds and chia seeds, like that's all good and fibrous, but the best fiber you can eat are fruits and vegetables and plants. Plants, 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 plants. The #1 plant that is going to give you the #1 thing that I will tell you is eat the rainbow. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Green, 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 green. So good. Okay. Fats, and this actually should read omega-3s. Sorry, not omega-6. Sorry. It should be fats and omega-3. So make a note. I mess up there. Fats are one of the #1 things that you can do to support your skin, okay? Because it creates moisture in the body. So the fiber and the fats create moisture, but they support the microbiome to the umpteenth level. So you're gonna wanna get fats. So fats can be in the forms of avocados and salmon, fatty fishes, oils like avocado and coconut and olive. Those are the ones that you want to consume. All the other ones you really don't want. Sunflower in moderation, but those are the oils. And that's why taking omega medicine, omega pills are so, so good for you. I take 2 a day because we don't get enough fat in our diet. And I want to tell you really quick that your body, remember how I said it runs off of one of 2 energy sources. It either runs off of sugar or it runs off of fats. And so when you feel tired and like you want to pick me up, it's actually fat you want to reach for because it doesn't give you insulin spikes and sugar crashes like sugar does. Sugar is erratic. It moves like this. Fat moves slow, but it moves like this and keeps you going. That's why a lot of people do like put butter in their coffee now, because coffee butter stabilizes the caffeine levels in coffee. There's a whole lot of things going with that. But anyway, fats. Ghee is another good one. Butter, grass-fed, unsalted butter is great. Fermented foods. This is a very ancient technique, but fermented foods are natural probiotics. And I'll talk about probiotics in a little bit. So like things like kimchi, homemade pickles, Greek yogurts, like kefirs, things like that. Like those are so supportive for the gut. And then probiotics are so great. So probiotics are the army that is outside the gut lining. So like when you take a probiotic, it basically like protects the castle. It protects everything from getting in, getting out. It basically is like, it supports and flushes in good bacteria. So probiotics are so good to take every single day. You have to work your way up to it because it can do stuff to your digestive system. And I always say, when it comes to supplements, consult your doctor, because your doctor will tell you exactly which one you should be on. I can tell you what I think, but I am not your doctor. Again, I'm just a coach. I'm not a doctor. Collagen is another good one because 70% of your gut is made up of collagen. And we know that collagen is the fiber that helps to keep the skin intact. And that's why collagen is so great for beauty, but it's so good for your gut health. Bone broth, collagen supplements like Vital Proteins is really good. And then this is a huge one, okay? Chewing your foods until it's liquefied. So this is where I get a little sensitive with salon people, is because you eat on the fly and you eat so fast that you're probably standing up and you're shoving your face. And I see this a lot with like little boys and men and kids. They eat so fast and they eat very distracted, like with their phone in front of them or in front of a TV or those kinds of things. And so our body is meant to eat basically liquefied foods for the most part, okay? So chewing your food and allowing the saliva to break the food down so that it can be easily digested through your digestive tract. What I notice is when I have clients that are really fast eaters, they have chronic breakouts because the food is not able to be digested. And when it's not digested properly, it moves to the microbiome and backs it up, and then you have a lot of problems. So chewing your food and doing it in a mindful way is so, so important. But here's the best thing that I can tell you for your microbiome. Eat the rainbow. This is why rainbow water is important, because it helps. It's not so much that the water itself is like going to change your life, but it's the fruit infusion is the flavor that you need. It gives you the sugar that you need, okay? But then you can eat the fruit at the end. And the best diet out there, and I hate to even call it the diet, is a plant-forward diet, because it gives you all the fiber, it gives you the fats, it gives you a diversity in vitamins and nutrients and antioxidants that your body and your microbiome need in order to build the environment for it to heal. And so what I mean by plant forward is not vegan. It's not vegetarian. Okay. It's not even pescatarian. And I don't even know if you guys even know the new one, which is called pegan, which is like a vegan who eats fish, which that's me. I'm a vegan who eats fish, but I do have like goat cheese and duck eggs. plant forward, meaning when you look, and we'll talk about this next week, when you look at your plate, overwhelm it with color. Overwhelm it with color. I don't ever in my program ever tell you what you can't eat, and I'll never tell you to count calories, okay? I don't do a weight loss protocol in my program, but every single person who joins my program loses weight because of what I tell you is to count your colors, not your calories. Count your colors. So important because it gives you a diversity of vitamins and nutrients that your body needs to thrive. Each color of food represents a different vitamin and a different nutrient that when you put them all together, it creates the puzzle. Each one is a piece of a puzzle, okay? All right, we've got about 5 minutes left. That was a lot of information. I'm just like, how do you feel right now? Can you guys just like drop it into the chat? Like, I did a speed round basics of the gut microbiome. Again, I could do like 10 weeks off of this, but like what are your aha moments? What are you getting? Great info. Like anybody else ready to revamp my food? Okay, I know everyone's gonna be like, oh my God, I'm ready to fit. Remember, it's about awareness, not, you can't, perfection. Don't worry about perfection. Baby step it, okay? Remember, like, it's about just like taking a breath, like taking a moment and being aware. Like it's that mindful moment of like when you go to pick out your food at the grocery store, it's one thing to, like I always say, like I always want to be the person I always thought I'd be when I bought that spinach, but like it's about being that person. It's about now knowing the information. Like this is why we diversify the foods. This is why we do that. Like listen to your body. We're going to talk next week about body intelligence because your body actually tells you what foods are not good for you and which ones are good for you, which ones are going to support you, which ones are not. Your body knows more than your mind. Okay. So, got a couple minutes left. I am so excited because after today, you are going to have my Beauty Flow grocery guide available to you, which is basically a grocery list of things you can have in your food, your kitchen. I'm not saying, this is not to imply that you go home and you throw everything out that you have in your pantry or anything like that. No, this is the guide of what I would say, I recommend. I've done so much research and work with people on this. Go off of this grocery guide the next time you go to the grocery store and work with this to buy your foods, okay? In my program, I actually work with how to cook foods and how to actually make the foods that are good for your beauty. But this is the list that you can work off of. It's so good. And I just want to say one thing before we have to leave. Like, if you want more questions, we're going to talk a little bit about this next week, but you can always reach out to me. Remember, you have to do the accountability and the practice in order to get transformation. This is just the education. But I also wanted to leave you with one thing because I've heard from some of you, and thank you guys for those of you who've reached out to me on Instagram. And some of you are like, okay, I think I need coaching like one-on-one, and that is so good. I'm so excited. So I'm going to be offering, this is just for you guys, okay? For any of you who are on Salon Service Group, okay? If you want to enroll in one-on-one coaching with me for 12 weeks, you will get a $300 discount off of the program, okay? $300 off my coaching program for 12 weeks. If you want, if you're like totally into that, or if you're like, whatever, no worries. But if it's something that has been on your mind and you're thinking of, you can DM me at Instagram to talk about it, or you can apply for the Beauty Flow method at sandyfitness.com. I just am so happy for those of you who've reached out and who've been feeling momentum. Please, please, please just keep reaching out. But I wanted to gift this to you because I think it's so important. So next session, Opting for Better Choices Part 2. We're going to talk about how you can choose your own emotions and how food impacts that. I'm going to give you a nutritional template, like a plate of what each plate or each meal could look like. And then we're going to talk about solutions in real life. Okay. It's up to you to choose to build an environment where your body can heal and thrive. It is a choice. Now, it isn't an easy choice. It doesn't happen right off the bat. You have to be aware of your habits that lead you to making your choices. And that's what happens in my one-on-one coaching program. But everything is a choice. You are a sovereign being. You get to choose. It's a choice. Okay. As always, you can connect with me. You know where, you know how. I want to hear any wins that you've got, any nutrition wins, any journaling wins, any meditation wins. DM me, DM me, DM me. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation, this session. You know I love it. And thank you guys so much. Awesome. Yay.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was awesome. I know I learned a ton. I hope all you guys did. I wanted to give a huge shout out to Gino Barbo. He's our guy. He's sponsoring this entire event. All SSG employees and our stylists, customers can experience this wellness journey with Sandy. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been great. And we hope to see you all next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.